So this week ended up being like a mini E3 week in the amount of presentations and announcements that we had for video games. Of course, we had Tokyo Game Show 2022, in which, I mean, Konami didn't show Metal Gear, they didn't show Silent Hill. We should all just give up on Konami like we did 10 years ago because, I don't know, man, I don't think it's ever happening at this point. Sony had a State of Play presentation that was actually pretty cool. We got a look at Tekken 8. We got a more in-depth look at God of War Ragnarok, which I think could easily be one of the Game of the Year contenders. It just looks absolutely awesome, and I love the new gameplay additions and the different areas you visit. I thought that trailer was really spectacular. Then, of course, you have the Nintendo Direct presentation, which, you know, some people got genuinely mad at me. Oh, you're being negative for clicks. You're being negative for likes. And it's like, no, I don't care about any of that. If I cared about any of that, I would be negative about every major thing like a lot of these YouTube channels are. I just genuinely was not interested in a lot of the stuff that they showed at that Nintendo Direct. Like a bunch of JRPGs, that's cool, but a lot of these JRPGs just kind of blend together after time. Farming simulators, when did this become a big popular thing? Like, I don't understand. I know that Stardew Valley put up some crazy numbers, but a lot of these games aren't going to replicate the simplicity of Stardew Valley. There are more games like Rune Factory, and we had Rune Factory announcements there too. So I just thought it was kind of strange, the timing of this presentation as well, considering that we have not gotten a proper Nintendo Direct since the month of February. And I think a lot of people aren't keeping that into account. Because when you think about it that way, this was the big lead up between February and September definitely fell a little bit flat for me. If you loved it, that is great. I am happy for you. I'm happy that you enjoyed that presentation, but just for me, it didn't quite have the amount of bangers that I wanted it to have. Well, Nintendo, of course, now has a pretty clear vision of the rest of 2022 for the Nintendo Switch, more so when it comes to the first-party titles. There are a bunch of third-party titles. There are still titles that don't have dates, like AEW Fight Forever, which is probably one of my most anticipated games. But when you look at Nintendo, in particular, with the 2022 lineup of games that they have, it's kind of interesting to me because I feel like there's something weird going on here. I feel like something might actually be missing when it comes to the big games that we're potentially expecting Nintendo to release in 2022. So when you look at the rest of 2022 for Nintendo, it's kind of a strange portrait that they're painting because of the fact that, well, there's not really a lot coming out from them themselves. Of course, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope is the next big game for the Nintendo Switch, the big AAA stuff. And this is a collaboration with, of course, Ubisoft and just sort of licensing Nintendo characters to make an XCOM style game. Now, I think the game looks absolutely phenomenal. This game will be coming out on October 20th and, you know, a good holiday game. I think a lot of people are going to be excited for it. Yes, it's different than your traditional Mario style game, but I think they do a good job. They did with the first game, I think they did a phenomenal job with making that game feel unique and making that game feel fun. So I'm looking forward to that game. Then, of course, you have Bayonetta 3 coming out on October 28th. Once again, this is kind of a more niche product. It's obviously being done by Platinum Games for Nintendo. Nintendo is indeed funding this, though, so, you know, you could say whatever when it comes to that. But once again, another awesome looking game, a game that I'm actually really looking forward to. I enjoy the more mature style stuff when it comes to Nintendo. It's something they don't really do, well, all that often, and when they do it, it's not necessarily them doing it. It's more of a collaborative effort. But I think the Bayonetta franchise is an important franchise for Nintendo. It helps, you know, puff out your portfolio. It helps you pretty much be like, look, you know, we have games for everyone, no matter if you're a kid or an adult, whatever type of game you like, we have something here for you. And then, of course, on November 18th, we have the upcoming Pokemon games with Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. Once again, fantastic looking games. I like that they're going like open world with this. I think it's going to lead to a lot of interesting situations. Yes, the graphics aren't really up to snuff with other games of the modern era, but I just don't think Game Freak necessarily cares. I don't think that they care because the games sell well and the games do ridiculously well. As long as they look somewhat polished, like, I guess who cares, because people just buy them anyways. You have to vote with your wallet, kiddies, and nobody's voting with their wallet with this. That's pretty much 2022 as far as Nintendo and their first party games are concerned, at least as of right now, September 17th. And I have some red flags with this. I have some questions with this. I have some thoughts about this because this really doesn't make sense to me. After Bayonetta 3, because I'm not going to consider the Pokemon games, you know, necessary. I mean, they're Game Freak games. Like, I get that Nintendo owns a portion of the company, but they're Game Freak games at the end of the day. They go to the beat of their own drum. They march to the beat of their own drum. I don't think Nintendo really, you know, tells them what to do. I don't think Game Freak tells Nintendo what to do. I think it's just a business relationship, and they both march to the beat of their own drum. When you take away Pokemon from this equation, you have Bayonetta 3 coming out on October 28th, and then you have Fire Emblem Engage coming out on the 20th of January. So no November game and no December game. And you might say to yourself, well, RGT, those months are notoriously not great for video game sales. And you know, you have somewhat of a case with that. I think it's a bit of an arbitrary case, because I feel like no matter when a game releases, it's going to sell as long as it's a quality game. I don't think timing really plays all that much a role in it, but we're talking about the holiday season here. We're talking about the panic and, you know, oh, we gotta get the latest game for our kid or else he'll hate us or something like that, which I don't really understand. Tell your kid to go get a job or something. Like, oh, you want to buy this game? Go get a job. Oh, you're 5 years old? I don't care. Go get a job, son or daughter. But anyways, I find it puzzling that Nintendo is going to skip out on November and December and then just go straight into January, towards the end of January with Fire Emblem Engage. Nintendo has done big games during December before. I mean, they did Xenoblade Chronicles 2 released in December of 2017 with that whole big year of Nintendo releases. So they're not above doing something like that. Obviously, they're also not, there seems to be this narrative that they want to space things out because they don't want to cannibalize game sales of things. But when you look at 2017 and the amount of games that came out and the pace that those games came out at, we're talking about Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like, these are major titles, and Nintendo didn't, you know, base it on, oh, well, maybe this game won't sell. No, they all sold. All of those games sold extremely well. So I go back to my main question here. Is Nintendo really not doing anything during November or December of this year? Like, they're just going to completely bypass those years and then sort of coast into 2023 with Fire Emblem and a new Kirby game, which Kirby's getting a lot of love all of a sudden. 3 Kirby games in 1 calendar year. Who would have seen that coming? I just feel like maybe, and I'm not trying to hype anyone up or anything about this, because obviously we failed miserably with the GameCube stuff. We failed miserably. And, you know, the insiders were evidently incorrect and this, that, and the other. Whatever the case may be, even just from a pure business perspective, those games make sense. I think those games make perfect sense to come to the Nintendo Switch. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of a chance. There's still a little glimmer of hope that there might be 1 or 2 more surprises. Now, why wouldn't they do that at a Nintendo Direct? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe Nintendo doesn't value these titles quite like we're valuing these titles, but there's still a little time. Time is fleeting. I don't think time is on their side right now as far as announcing something, but really you need 6 weeks. You need 6 weeks from a game reveal to be like, this is when it's coming out in store so that retailers can get their orders in, this, that, the other. It could just be a digital only game, which, wow, that would go over like gangbusters with the Nintendo collecting community. But I just feel like maybe there's one more surprise, because if not, it just feels very weird. It feels very sort of open and maybe even a little bit hollow. Nintendo doesn't care about third-party companies and what they're doing. They care about their own stuff. And the fact that, you know, Pokemon is technically not a Nintendo game, stop saying that it is. You know, the fact that Pokemon seems to be the final game for 2022, which will sell like gangbusters, but it's just weird to me. It's just weird because you always have Pokemons even alongside of all those Nintendo games that I talk about when Nintendo does big end of year stuff. So let me know what you think of this in the comments section down below. Am I just going way down this rabbit hole in an incorrect way? Or do you also think it's kind of weird how the situation is playing out? And do you think that there could potentially be, you know, another surprise announcement from Nintendo for this year of something that comes out this year before the end of the calendar year? Let me know what you think of it in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Make sure you guys watch all the videos from this previous week. A lot of stuff on the channel. I'm talking a lot of stuff. There's a retro video coming out tomorrow. I have it all edited and done, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.